Most importantly for this project, you're going to need some joint compound. I happen to get this at Home Depot. It's a 3.5 quart of all-purpose joint compound. This said for sheetrock. It comes, small tubs, comes in the really, really big tubs. And you can see you have an awful lot in here. You can make a lot of pictures. I've hardly touched it, as you can see, and I've made quite a few pictures already. So just need one big container, and it's not all that expensive. I got this, and it was about $11. So you get a lot of bang for your buck with a small container. Some of the other supplies that we're going to use. You definitely want to protect your work surface. This is an extremely messy project. I have no jewelry on. I have myself covered in an apron. I have my surface protected with a plastic tablecloth. I've even opened up a cereal box. This is a great way to protect your surface, and you can put, once you've done your picture, you can put it on that to dry so it doesn't mess anything up in case any little pieces of the joint compound are hanging over, because it's pretty messy. So something to cover your surface with. You also want something to put your joint compound in. Paper plates, little plastic bowls. I also have some takeout containers that I've put joint compound on, especially if you want to mix it with paint colors. You want to have something that you can put it in and keep them separate. You can use paint. Any type of acrylic paint will do. You can, for a faux impasto, you can just put it on completely white, let it dry, and then paint it afterwards if you want. Or you can mix your colors up to start with. The colors will not be very, very dark and vibrant. They'll be much more pastel. So you can mix it first, and then if you wanted to make them even darker, then you can paint over that once you've got them on and they've dried. But you can use paint, or you can just use the straight joint compound and keep it like the plastery white looking color. You're definitely going to want to have some scissors. I like using cardboard boxes. Everybody's got boxes around the house. This makes a great stiff material to be able to use. You can cut all sorts of different sizes and shapes. You can make them bigger. You can make them smaller. I like starting out with small little tiny ones to practice with. One thing with the cardboard, it will buckle a little bit because the joint compound, as it starts to dry, it makes it buckle. So if you want it to be even a little thicker, you can glue a couple of pieces of cardboard together to start with. Hot glue them together, make sure they're really dry, and then you can put your joint compound on that. They will bend the canvases a little bit too, so that's why you never really want to use one of the really big canvases. I really wouldn't go bigger than 8.5 by 11. If you go anything larger, like the big 16 by 24s or anything big, you have to put something on the back of it, maybe some boards, because it will start to buckle in as it dries. Joint compound is heavy, so as it dries, it starts to buckle. So smaller is better with this type of project. You can, as I said, you can use the paint. You can also use the wax paper if you want to use that instead of plates. You can use toothpicks to make marks or to help mix. Plastic cutlery is also great. Everybody's got some of those from takeout left over. So spoons are great to mix up instead of using a palette knife. You can also use a palette knife, which they do sell at the Dollar Tree, but you can also use that. You can use a fork to make marks, to mix, also make marks. You can use a knife to make marks, also use that as a palette knife. So plastic cutlery is great. They sell what is called taping plates, and these help put lots of it on at a time. A little more expensive, so you really don't need those. If anybody gets junk mail and you get the little plastic credit cards, the fake ones in the mail, those are great to save because then you can cut, you can use them straight to use as a palette knife and make things smooth, or you can cut notches in there to do patterns. You can also get sets of palette knives like I have here. These have all sorts of different shapes on them. that can give you some great patterns as you're going into your texture paint or texture joint compound like we're using. They also have just the plain metal palette knives. I like the metal because they clean up really well, but the plastic works just as well too. If you want to embed things into your plaster, Dollar Tree has some great gems. They have glass beads, they have sea glass pieces, bigger glass gems. So these are really pretty when you put those in. You can also, I'm lucky I have access to a beach. So you can pick up some driftwood. You can get some sticks from the yard. Those are pretty. Stones that you might pick up. So anything can be embedded. Old jewelry that you have. Those beads would look really cool in there. So you can put different things in there. So those are really the basics. It's a quick and easy project. Not a lot of supplies, and it's not very hard. So let's turn the camera around and let's get started and let's have some fun. So let's start with a piece of cardboard. This has already been cut a little bit. I'm just going to show you how easy it is to take any box and just cut along the line. The nice thing with that is you can pretty much make any size or shape that you want. You can trim it up. I had pulled this before, so it wasn't exactly even. I can trim that up. And now I have a surface that I can work with. You can see where cardboard is corrugated. It almost has lines that you can follow along. I'm not going to make this really thick. I'm just going to go right on the plain single sheet of cardboard. I'm not going to worry about it. Let's take some of the joint compound. I'm going to take one of my bowls. I'm going to take my spoon. And I'm just going to take a nice big glob of joint compound to start with. I didn't say before, but you definitely also want to use some some paper towels or some napkins. Keep those handy, maybe even some wet wipes, because this is a messy project, as I said. Let's just try to make some marks before we go into trying to actually make a picture. Let's just make some marks. I can take the back of that spoon and I can start laying on my joint compound. It's almost like frosting a cake. You just want to get it on there. If you want to just make marks, you definitely want it somewhat thick. If it's super thin, it might crack. And you also don't have enough space, or not space, but thickness to make some marks in it. So you definitely want to put it on there. I'm also going to take, I like using the plastic palette knives. So I'm just going to put it on there. I'm going to smooth around the sides. I'm just going to make sure that I have all the space covered. All right, it's a relatively even texture. I need a little bit more up on top. So you can see now, I just have this completely covered. It's not completely smooth. It has bumps and ridges, but I don't care about that because I want to put my own patterns in it. I'm going to take a paper towel and just work on a paper towel so I don't make too much of a mess and wipe my hands off because, as I said, this is really messy. So in an example like this one, where I have the marks made, some lines, I've added the glass gems, I've even added some pieces of cardboard. I could add another glass gem on there. Once it's dried, I could glue these on as well. Or if I know I want them, like I did with those, I just embedded them right in it while it was still wet. But that's what your plain compound looks like versus where you've added your colors to it already. That's already been painted with the mixed with the joint compound. So I actually, as I was doing it, it had my colors with it. But as I said, for now, I like the plain plaster look, so let's just go with that. Let's make some marks now. Let's take the fork like I was talking about. I can take it now that I have a pretty good thickness. I can bring it, I can make swirls. And you can see how that makes the marks right in it. What if I don't like that? If I've decided, you know what, I really don't like the swirls. Take whatever you used before, hold on to the swirl, and look at that. Smooth it right out. If you decide, nope, didn't want to go in that direction. Almost like an Etch-a-Sketch. Plain canvas again. So I can decide, all right, I didn't like those kinds of marks. What if I wanted something thinner? Maybe if I just take a toothpick. I just want to do some thin, squiggly lines. I can do little lines. They don't show up very well on camera, but they're in there. I can take the fancy tool that I have, put it in, pull, make some marks. And you can see the marks. I'm going way down so I can have my cardboard exposed because that's a neat look. I can go just lightly where I'm not having the cardboard exposed. But you can see this fancy little tool didn't really do anything different than this tool because I can push down as much as I want with that or as little as I want with that. So the fun thing is just really, truly experiment with making some marks and see what you like. If I want to put some gems in there, I can just take the gem, plop it right in there. I don't have to do anything fancy. I would obviously be doing this lying flat on my surface, putting them down, but I can add gems wherever I want to put those in. I can use round ones. I can add anything in there that I want. With this particular example, I used just pieces of cardboard, so it almost looks like it's cut out. And you can see this dries hard. This one, I did it a little thinner so it did not buckle. You never know if it's going to buckle or not. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But if I decide, again, I don't want the gems, I can take them out, put them back. So really, you can do whatever you want. Experiment with making some marks. It can be a lot of fun, and you can do just abstract or somewhat draw in there. Do different shapes that you'd like. Use stencils if you like that look as well. I can use my other flatter palette knife. What if I want some squares? I can use it to scrape away I can do a shape that way. I can go this way, do squares on both sides, like a square, like rectangle. I like the look of having the cardboard through. If you didn't, you can even just gently come through and smooth that out, paint back in there. Basically kind of, you know, I'm going to keep calling it painting with the joint compound. You're making impressions. So it's just a lot of fun to experiment. You know, I like that little circle indent that I had. I can draw my own abstract ovals, circles, swirlies. You know, whatever you want to do. It's fun to just take one and practice with, saying, how do I want to use this? How do I want to make patterns? How does it feel? And then again, when you don't like it, if you don't like what you're doing with it, you just smooth it right back out and you keep going. These are really fun too. You can see that I'm just taking that spoon and I'm going back and forth with it. And I've given myself a background texture. With that kind of a texture, that's like I have on that, where I had some upraised edges and you can see the background has the patterns in them. So that was a background. And then I painted on top of that. So that shows how you can get the ridges and the different patterns. So I'm just going to set this one aside for now. Let's take another small piece of cardboard. I'm going to show you how to mix it. I'll take a bunch of these out. Again, wet wipes would be really great to have because then you can easily clean your tools off. Once this dries, it does peel off, so don't worry about that. You're really not going to ruin anything. And you can use your fingers. I had a lot on there, so I'm just going to scoop it right off. Like I said, this is a fun, messy project. This is not to wear your really good clothes with. All right, so I still have a bunch of compound in this bowl. I am going to take some paint and I'm going to add some purple. Just going to squeeze some in there. Take my palette knife, your spoon, whatever it is you want to use, and I'm just going to start to mix this together. And you can see it really does turn more of a pastel color. You really don't get a lot of vibrant because the joint compound is white, and it just really tends to want to mix. If I put more paint in, it's still really not going to get that dark. It still wants to turn back to the lighter color. As you can see, that went right back to that same color. So all I did was really waste a lot of paint trying to get it darker. But as I said, what you can do is once you put this on in this color, if you do want it darker, well then wait till it completely dries and then you could paint over that. So what I want to do now is I want to basically start to paint on my palette, on my little piece of cardboard that I'm going to use as my background palette. So let's take the spoon, because everybody has the plastic spoons at home. If I want to do a nice basic flower, I'm going to just put some on the back of my spoon like that. You can see. I'm going to set it plop it on my cardboard, and lift. Place it and lift. Place it and lift. So you can see that it stays upright. So you're getting some great 3D effects. So there you can see I have a 3D effect going on. I could plop flowers all over the place, and then I could paint the background if I wanted to. I could paint the cardboard first if I wanted a different background, and then cover it. If I decide I don't like it, look at that. I can scrape it right back off. And I can start again. So let's take this. I'm going to cover this whole piece now with this purple color. That's going to be my background. I'm just going to smooth it out, plop it on, and smooth it out as best as I want. I don't want to make this too thick because I'm not going to do impressions in this one. If you're going to do impressions, you want it thick. You want it like a 1/4 inch thick. But if you're just wanting to cover it, it doesn't need to be that thick. So for this purpose, I'm just going to put some on there, turn it around, get some more. Kind of clean my edges out a bit. I do want a textured background though. I don't want it completely smooth. So I'm just going to make some lines. So you can see I have a really pretty textured background. I'm just going to clean up the sides a little bit just by dragging that. So now I have a pretty purple background to start with. I'm going to take a piece of paper towel. It wasn't really enough to scrape off, so I'm just going to take that. I had already mixed some red, even though it looks pink, and some green. And I just took the paint and mixed it like I just did the purple. So let's use that as the background. And I think I want to do some stems. So I'm taking my palette knife. Again, if you don't have a palette knife, you could use the regular knife. You could use the back of a credit card. You could even use a piece of cardboard. But I'm going to take it. I'm going to get some on there. I'm just going to kind of plop it. And just bring it down in a line. So now I have almost like a stem. And you can take just a little plop it on there, and then pull it down. Add some more. Smooth it out. And just pull it down. So now I have pretty much like a wavy leaf. I'm going to take another plop it. You can see I'm just kind of gently moving it around, bringing it in. making it a little more delicate. I can use the back of my tip. I can smooth things out that way. Bring it up. Make it look like it has some movements. Definitely this is more of an abstract style. You're really not going to get a lot of good perfection. It's very difficult to get perfect lines. But you can see this all raises up. If I want to make that thicker, I can just keep adding more and pulling it up. I'm going to keep putting my finger there since that's where I was holding it. So you can see I have some very textural leaves. I could use my finger to bring it down more. But the more movement it has, kind of the more real it actually looks. You know, I can fill in a little bit there. Bring it down. So that's a basic flower stem. I'm going to just keep having a clean palette knife, so I'm going to wipe that off. Now let's do just a basic rose. I'm going to take some of this reddish pink that I have, that I've mixed up. I really just want a good plop. I'm going to just plop that right down. And I'm just kind of looking at it saying, well, where could petals be? But you want it thick. You want it upraised. And see, I got a little bit of pink there. I can easily take that right off, smooth that out with my finger. And you can see there, I have an abstract rose. It was that easy to do just a simple rose like that. This is one of the pictures where I did tiny, tiny, tiny little roses. So I just drew some green lines all over the place and then just plopped some little flowers. So they could be poppies, they can be roses, they can be whatever you want. Then I decided, because I had done the blue for the background, I decided to add some white to make that clouds. So that gives you that look. If I want to do another small example of, let's do an abstract rose. I'm going to need to get some more giant compound. Let's put it in. I think I'm going to keep, I'm going to make it with that red color still. I like the red color. So I do want to keep things clean, not contaminate my joint compounds. I'm going to wipe that all off. I'm going to grab a pretty good amount and stick that in there. We're going to do an abstract rose. And I think what I want to do first is I'm going to take a clean palette knife. I think I have one of the bigger ones out. I'm going to take a clean palette knife. I just want to put a little bit of a background just because I don't want my cardboard showing. So let's just, I'm going to smooth that out. You can see how quickly it goes on. So I'm just going to give this just a basic white background, but I'm going to just go very, very thin with my coat. Got a little pink mixed in there, that's okay. I'm going to scrape that off though, because I don't want a lot of that yet, but it's all going to be covered, so it's all right. So I'm going to just put some joint compound all over, not worrying about the middle so much, just really trying to get the side edges covered. So I'm going to fill the middle in definitely. I'm just trying to get that side edge, carrying it down, bringing it down. Because once you do your pattern, it's really hard to try to go into the background. So you really want to make sure your background looks the way you want your background to look. All right, so that's got a basic cover all over. Can't really see my cardboard through that. I'm going to set that down. Now with my red paint, I'm going to add some more red in there. Set that aside for a minute. Let's just mix that right up. Give that a good mix. Scraping on my sides. Getting that all mixed in. Like I said, these takeout plastic containers are really nice because it gives you a lot of edges to scrape your spatulas off on. Whatever you're using for this, absolutely do not then use it for food. So everything has to be dedicated. If you want to use a real spatula, go ahead and use that, or a rubber spatula, but then you're not going to want to use that for food. So go to the Dollar Tree, get your supplies. Don't use your good stuff. All right, so now I have that pretty well mixed. I want to take that, I'm going to do an abstract rose. I want to plop, and that is a term. Let's plop some in the middle. And I just want to kind of start swirling this out, giving kind of a rounded idea. And then I'm just going to take my palette knife and I want to just kind of do some swirls. We're making an abstract rose. So you can see I'm just digging in because this is thicker. I just want to do some different little swirls in that. And again, if you don't like what you're doing, you can scrape it off. You can add more on top. I think I like that. I'm going to clean this off. I have some of my green left over. It has some pink on it, so I do want to scrape that off because I don't want my pink to be added in there. This has some white. I'm going to push that into there just so I can make some more. That was with green that I had already had. That's a bit too pale. I'm going to add just a little bit more green paint to that. Make that a little bit darker. You just want to mix it, move it to the middle, scrape it off, mix some more, and just kind of keep moving it back and forth to the middle. So now let's add some leaves. I'm going to use the back of my spoon. I'm going to get a good amount. Let's put a leaf here. I'll just put it, plop it here, and smooth it out. Put it on. Add some more to the end. There's a leaf. Let's take another good chunk of it. Let's put one over here. I'm just going to plop. Pulling it to a little bit of a point. And I like things in threes. So I'm going to scrape the rest of this up. Little, so as you can see, a little bit goes a really long way. Smooth that down. Get it where I have it nice and ploppy. Let's put one here. A little bit more on that end. And then if I want, I can take my palette knife and draw a line in the middle of it. Give it some texture. See, I went down a little bit too far. I don't like that, so I can just smoosh it all together again. And then just do a gentle line at the end. So now with this, you can see, and I have a little bit of a pink splotch, so that's why the toothpicks are nice. Just push that right into it. There. So that's an abstract rose. Really easy. All we did was plop, move it around in circles, and you can really get some fun and neat looking pictures out of this. Say I want to take this one back. Let's add some pieces of cardboard to it. I'm going to take my cardboard. I'm going to cut just some narrow strips. There's one. With one box, you have a ton of material, either to make things with, to use as material to scrape and make designs with. Do whatever you want with it. I'm going to do, let's do some stripes, but I'm going to make them, gradually smaller. So let's make some cool stripes. I'm just going to take this, and you can see it was sitting there for a while, and that's fine. It takes a long time to dry, so you've got time. Let's put a stripe there. Let's put a stripe there. Let's put a little stripe in there, and I'm just pushing it down in, and that will then adhere. Let's take some of my gems. Let's put a really big one. I'm just going to make sure I'm pushing that right in. Getting that in there. And let's take another little clear one and put that there. Let's go all clear. I said I like things in threes. So you can see how you can add texture, really make some cool marks with these. You can paint that later, leave it plain. So this is just a really small example of some of the things that you could do. You could draw a vase, make a vase shape out of your cardboard. If I would probably want to paint my background first, but just to show you quickly, if I take this cardboard, I can take the purple, and then let's just put that out. I'm just going to slowly bring that down to a taper. Let's give it a bottom. So you can see you can get detailed with it if you want. Again, I would definitely take the time to probably do a background, at least of white, for this. But I have a vase shape. So now I could take some of my green, bring up some leaves. I'm going to definitely keep it chunky. You know, build up as you go. And then you can take your red again, since we have a lot of red. I'm just going to swirl. Do some swirly flowers. Taking a plop. This is really fun to do with the kids because it's messy. They'll have a really good time with this. And you can see just crazy little swirls. When that dries, you've just suddenly got so much texture that looks like you tried to make it really fancy like that, and you didn't. You can take your toothpick, pick up that pink. I can take it, I can swirl it around some more if I want some fine texture. I can add more green on top of that if I want. I could leave it like this, or then I could take some acrylic paint and paint in the background. This makes great Mother's Day cards, projects for the kids to be able to do. You can really come in once this is dried a bit more, you can add more details to it. You can add some leaves. You know, I'm doing this very quickly, so if you really want it just super look nice, you know, you're not doing it up in the air like I am. You're doing it down on a down on your surface. But I'm just showing you the ideas of what you can do. You know, you just keep touching in green leaves, making it as fancy or as plain as you want, textural. But, you know, look how easy that is. All different things you can do. Lots of abstract shapes. And very quickly. So that was our project for today. Really easy, really fun, really quick, and the sky's the limit. Again, just use your creativity and your ideas of what you want to embed into it, marks that you want to make, anything that you want to do with it. Again, they can be used as cards, they can be framed, they can be hung. You can put it on, say you have a vase and you just want to add some texture, put it on a vase. Really fun stuff. So have some fun with this, do some experimentation. Sky's the limit. I hope you had fun. Thanks for crafting with me. This is Kimberly and Crafting with Kimberly. Till next time, bye-bye.